Guys, we are sticking with the topic of sustainability in our next block, and we have another joint presentation. I don't know about you, but I always find joint presentations very inspiring because it shows that different groups, different companies can work together, and that's really what's going to happen if we want to have a shot at solving the climate change crisis. So, without further ado from me, let me introduce to you our next two speakers. Marco Sarich, the founder and CEO of Keylight, and Mailin Jappé, Acer's Director of Everything as a Service. Give them a warm welcome to the main stage. Welcome. It's all yours.
So, does that work? Yes. Welcome to the session this afternoon. So, maybe we were introduced, and let me see whether that works. Yes, that's us. And the next question I have is, how many of you have actually a laptop in your office, somewhere stored, one of those old ones where you maybe even have some data on it still, and you don't know what to do with it? Hands up. How many of you actually want a laptop or a PC that you can work with and where everything works? More so. So how can we solve that? I think we all agree we have a lot of resources that are somewhere stored in our cupboards, resources when we talk about sustainability that are not being used and maybe not even recycled properly, and on top have data on it that we worry about or that we maybe not think about anymore, but as a company we actually want to have that data secure. So it's actually money that we're having in our cupboards and that we're not using. And everyone wants to have a tool to do their job properly, to be productive. And this is when you say, okay, you're working for Acer. How are you solving that? So we launched recently Acer Device as a Service that combines everything around the hardware together with services, together with software as a service in one monthly or quarterly subscription. So you pay for your hardware and all the services around like you would do for your electricity bill on a monthly basis. What does this change for a company on a business model? I think we have very good engineers developing amazing hardware products. But when it's a subscription, we're looking at what do you as a user really want to do with those? What do you need to get your job done? And this is where we really go from a very much product focus more and more to a user and customer-centric approach. This one changes a lot. For the customer, though, it should be super easy. It should be a digital customer experience. You pay for your device and all the services around it on a monthly basis, but it actually brings a lot of back-end complexity that the customer should not see, should not experience, because customer experience should be amazing. And this is where Keylight comes in. And I'll let Marco tell you more about how can we get to this user experience on subscriptions.
Thank you.
You want to go in?
Yeah, so Mailin just talked about how Acer is looking at subscriptions, right, about their model. Now I want to explain a little bit more and add some background why this is actually the right approach, and also dive a little bit deeper into sustainability and also scalability from a business perspective. And as a side note, this applies actually to B2B and B2C the same way. So the first question is, why are subscriptions exciting? Why do you get excited about it as a business? Or for example, your finance team, why do their hands get sweaty and they get this glow in their eyes when they hear subscriptions? I mean, the magic word usually is recurring revenue, right? And it is understandable because, I mean, who doesn't like revenue and who wouldn't want it to be a recurring, right? But I mean, it's an important metric as well, right, for your company, for the company valuation these days. And if you look into the German language, subscription can even be translated with the word Dauerschuldverhältnis. I mean, I wouldn't recommend to use this in marketing. It's usually kind of a downer, but it still exists. And for the people that don't speak German, it basically means that you permanently are in debt with someone, right? So somebody is in your debt forever. This sounds good for you, but also like a creepy trap somehow, right? So it's not the right approach. It's not the right mindset, what is actually exciting about subscriptions. The most exciting thing is that when you look into subscriptions, the goals of your business are changing completely. You're not selling products and services anymore. That's not the most important thing. It's about creating relationships. And this is also where sustainability comes into play, right? Because if Acer, for example, just sells a laptop to someone and then they part ways, I don't know. I mean, Acer laptops are cool. I mean, they're just the best. But on the other hand, a laptop is replaceable somehow, right, by another one. But an established, trusted relationship that you establish is not. It's much more robust against competition, disruption, pandemics, right? So if you build a subscription business, you need to focus on the people and customer journeys first. And this is exactly what we call a user-centric mindset. And there are much more advantages also that come with this user-centric mindset that are about scalability. At Keylight, we usually look at 3 very important areas when you want to scale a business, a subscription business in particular. And this is what we call the subscription trinity. It's about user experience, automation, and predictive analytics. If you think about recurring revenue and you have more finance-centric approach, you usually start in the middle part with automation. This is what is immediately clear to you, right? Because you see the word recurring. And recurring means something should be automated, right? But this has a downside. If you do that, it's extremely hard later on to make these areas really work together. On the other hand, if you start with a user-centric mindset, you look at customer journeys, we will see that these 3 areas actually start to speak the same language. They connect and they work effortlessly together. And this is exactly what you want to achieve, what is incredibly important to scale the company later. And I want to show this, how these things work together with an example. And as an example, I take a customer journey. This is an example, right? So let's look at it. There's a customer who subscribes maybe to a base product, let's say with a monthly payment, right? Want to stay flexible, cancel any time, just with a monthly payment method. After some time, the customer's confident and switches actually to annual payment. Sometime later, they try a free trial for some add-on, but they don't like it, they do not convert. Sometime later, you figure out they go to the customer portal, to self-service, and they start to cancel. They look into a cancellation, but they don't complete. That's kind of a dangerous situation, right? But later on, all is good, and that's today. Maybe a partner of yours sells 2 additional products, so has an additional sale here. So this is the first observation. We're not in a traditional one-off sale anymore. Look at this. It's a journey, it's a smooth curve, it's dynamic, it evolves in time. And that's also a challenge already for many businesses that now work with subscription. And the processes are not step by step anymore, but everything is really, the clocks are ticking differently, right? So everything, as time continues, things depend on each other. It's much more complex to deal with these kind of journeys. First point, user experience, right? You see along the journey all these interactions, right? We have to enable these interactions. Subscriptions, changes, free trials, involving partners. So this is what user experience is about. Many companies actually, when they talk about user experience, they think only about their customers, which is very selfless and noble. But actually, you as a business, you can also have a good user experience. You are also allowed to enjoy, right? So your partners, your sales team, customer success, even your accounting, they can also have a good experience, right? So it's really meant for everyone. And it's incredibly important that these things work together. So the next step is then automation, right? Because everything can happen at any point in time. It's real time. You cannot control really these events. You need to be ready to react to all these events that happen along the customer journey. And this is where automation comes into the picture. But the difference now is that now in this graph that I have, automation is along the customer journey. It's connected to the events and to the user experience, right? So you maybe need to generate invoices, collect payments, activate services, right? You need to track some events, and also actually feed it the other way around. So automation can also help you with the experience. Because you need, for example, to guide your users, right? To validate their input, to make sure that everything is fine, what they're doing. So also there, automation and user experience, they need to, like from the start, they really need to work as one when you think about launching a subscription service. It's incredibly hard to do this later on. You have to do it really right away. Of course, that's the last part. There's an interesting next question. If you look at this curve, it's an obvious question. It's even indicated on the lower right. What happens next, right? So we're here today. What is the next event? But there are much, much more questions to that. Not only what will be the next event, but when will it happen? How long will it take? What's the path? What happens in between? Why is it happening, right? These are all things you would like to understand. And that is a big difference between just analytics and predictive analytics. So in predictive analytics, you want to answer these questions, and you actually also look at customer journeys, and you don't just want to say, oh, is this a happy customer or is it a sad customer? Or you want to say, if you are really into probabilities, it's a 70% happy customer. It's more than that, right? You really want to understand what will happen, when will it happen, and why. And yeah, to illustrate this last part, I actually changed the example a little bit because this one is way too simple. So if you look at this curve, I mean, it's so smooth, you can almost tell what the next event will be, right? It looks very easy. But this is not how it is in reality. So in reality, customer journeys don't look like this. They look like that. So it's much, much more complicated to say, oh, what will happen? Where will the customer go? What will be the next event? It's not so easy to say. So in this example, the top left corner is always the starting point. So maybe as we had it, right, our customer just started with a subscription. The top right corner is something positive. This is where we want to get. Customers happy, will purchase many, many more products, good relationship. Lower right corner is something bad. Customer churns, doesn't want the business anymore. The good thing about it is, and here also user centricity and journeys come into play, is that you can analyze these things. It's not something new to the world, these kind of questions. It's also not something specific about subscriptions. You have this everywhere in the world, actually. A fundamental question, how to get from A to B, right? As a small remark, maybe my background is in mathematics. I was for a long time in research, and I was actually doing research on biomolecules and medicine. So processes of biomolecules. Same question here. We start with some molecule, that's the colorful spaghetti over there on the left, and you want to fold it, folding processes. That's what you want to achieve. But if the molecule doesn't do that, it does something else, this might be a serious disease, actually. So you want to understand how this happens and want to analyze it. And all the methods, that's the beauty about the user-centric approach, that you have available from these kind of processes, you can just apply it from biomolecules to customer journeys. That's really, really cool, I think. And maybe I see in your eyes, you don't like molecules so much. Maybe I'll give you another example that's more practical. Let's say relationships, back to relationships, but not business relationships. Let's say personal relationships. So let's assume top left corner, you just met someone. You go to a bar, you see a person, and you know that's a great person. You want to marry this person. Top right corner, wedding. That's your goal. That definitely looks as complicated as that. I mean, to get from there to there. And the question is, how can you do that, right? How can you analyze this and find a way? One thing that you can do is, because you're dealing with journeys, relationships, and paths, that you find a spot which is a point in this maze where most of the successful paths from the top left to the top right go through. So that's kind of a necessary step. That's something you have to go through to get there. So let's get back to the example. What could this be? Maybe a foot massage, right? So between the bar and the altar, there is usually a foot massage, right? So this could be something that you always have to do. At some point in time, you have to go through that. And if you do this, if you compute these milestones, right, you know, this I have to achieve. Now the next question is, how do I get from the start to the foot massage, and so on? If you repeat this, you can actually really find paths, successful journeys and unsuccessful ones, and you can look at them. You don't need complex machine learning for that. It's really just dynamical systems, many algorithms that are available already that you can apply to this scenario. And what you can understand is why and how long does it take? Are certain things, certain journeys successful and others fail? And then you can also start to look into, of course, these milestones. So going back to our subscription example, maybe you find out a switch to annual payment is incredibly important. That's the milestone. So when a customer switches actually really to an annual payment, then he's on the green path and he will most likely go to the top right corner and we're all good. But maybe you see that if the customer doesn't change anything for 4 months, then it's really critical. Then you hit a milestone for the red path and he will probably churn. And this, of course, is extremely valuable information, right? Not only because you now know, but you can also act on it. So if you're getting close to this 4-month deadline, you can take countermeasures, right? So for example, you can add a discount and say, let's try to bring the customer back to the path of success. You can control it, right? You can control the narrative. And that's extremely powerful about this predictive part where you can do scenarios, simulation, and really understand what's happening. And of course, maybe as a concluding remark, also this is not something new. When I dealt with biomolecules in medicine, this was nothing else than medication, right? To bring the proteins back on the right side. So with this, I will leave the key takeaways just here for you to read. There are 3 of them. Thanks to Mailin, of course, for sharing the stage with me. Don't forget to visit us at our booth if you want to know more. It's right over there. We don't offer foot massages, but we do have a magician. And tomorrow we also have a masterclass one more time with our partner, Visma. Thank you very much and see you later.